I think it's time to give you my honest opinion about the SONY ZVE10. Let's roll the intro. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on my channel. I am PhotoRabs. I do videos about photography, filmmaking, camera tech related reviews, unboxing, action cams, vlogging kits and so on. If you're interested, I highly appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. That's a massive help. I bought this camera back in September 2022 and it's been about 6 months now I have it and I'm filming with it almost every day. I fell in love with the Sony ecosystem using the SONY ZVE10 and I decided to replace it with this ZVE10, which has a bigger sensor comparing to the ZVE1. We have an APS-C sensor here, and on the ZVE1 we have 1-inch sensor. We have exchangeable lens system, so I can put any E-mount lens on this camera and I can extend the ability of shooting with this camera comparing to the Sony ZVE10. And I decided to talk about it now. It's been 6 months I'm using it and we are hearing lots of rumors about new ZV cameras from Sony dedicated to vloggers, so let's dive into this one. By the way, I'm not paid by Sony to do this video or any other videos on my channel. This is my honest opinion about the camera in order to help you choose whether this camera is suitable for you for what you need it for, or you have to wait few months in order to get the new ZV camera from Sony that will be released. This camera was released back in August 2021. It's been about 1.5 years in the market. It's been one of the favorite cameras for content creators and vloggers out there. But as any other piece of technology, this camera has lots of cons and pros. Let's talk about them in this video. Let us start with the pros and keep the cons till the end of this video. So this camera is mainly sold with this kit lens, the 16 to 50 millimeters. It's fairly compact. You can find good deals on the internet for less than 800 euros, which make this camera great for beginners in videography and filmmaking, as well as photography. This camera with this lens delivers high quality images. The sharpness is amazing. This lens is optically stabilized, which make it very useful for vloggers and filmmakers. With that being said, with all the capabilities of this camera, it has been one of the favorite cameras for content creators, vloggers and YouTubers out there. I know many YouTubers and content creators, they use it as a main camera or as a second camera for their creation. It's fairly lightweight. It weighs about 350 grams for the body only, and it's fairly compact. You can put it in any backpack. It doesn't take much space. It delivers high quality images, high quality footages. It's really insane how we can condense such great capabilities in this body. Besides the image quality of this camera, it has a fast and reliable autofocus with a very accurate eye detect autofocus system. It's one of the best autofocus system in the market for this price range. It's something really nice for vloggers, content creators. We need autofocus system that we can rely on, and this camera has it in this small body. That's something amazing for this camera as well. It has a great built-in microphone. It's not perfect, but it's amazing. It's one of the best, if not the best, in the market. You can start recording and vlogging directly with the camera without caring about adding an external microphone. It has a windshield that you can put here on the cold shoe that I don't have now. So you can start recording directly, and if you want to plug an external microphone to take your audio to the next level, the preamp of this camera is one of the best, again, if not the best in the market. You can have great audio quality coming out from this small body comparing to other bigger bodies, bigger mirrorless cameras in the market. It does not have a time limit for recording video, so you can put it as a B cam, for example, and start recording, and at the end in post-prod you can post-process your file and cut it wherever you want without caring about start recording and stop recording every now and then. It has an S&Q button on top of it, which allows you to switch quickly between photo mode, video mode, slow motion or time-lapse. Since I don't do time-lapses a lot, I configured it to slow motion. That's really handy. Whenever you want to do some slow motion, you only press this S&Q button and then you're ready to go. The Sony E-mount system has been on the market since a very long time, so third-party manufacturers made lots of lenses for the E-mount system if you are on a budget. I have this Samyang 12mm f2.0 with autofocus system that lives basically on the camera all the time. I use it for vlogging, for some filming, whether in the car or in the streets. I really love this lens. It's compact, lightweight, and it do the job. I really love it. I bought also the Tamron 35mm f2.0. It's a macro lens, so now I can do some macro shots and macro footages with the Sony ZVE10. Besides, I have always the 16-50, the kit lens, which delivers, as I said before, great images and great rushes. It doesn't have a very wide aperture, but it can do the job when we are outside in the bright sunny days. This lens is something really nice as well. Sony offers in this body the gyroscopic stabilization. What it basically does is that it records gyroscopic data when you record videos with this camera. Then you can take the file into Catalyst Browse. You can put it in Catalyst Browse and then you can stabilize it based on gyroscopic data. That's something really nice. You can have smooth footages out of it, but Catalyst Browse, it's free if you want to do some rushes, but it takes time if you want to put some big videos and big files. Be aware of this. And you can buy the Pro version of the Catalyst Browse in order to make your workflow even faster. In this section, I'll be talking about the cons of the Sony ZVE10, but before I start listing them, we have to be aware that this camera costs 800 euros for the camera, the body, and the kit lens. We have to be aware that with this price range, we cannot expect the highest and the greatest image quality as well as the greatest, newest features in this body. So we have to keep this in mind before we start talking about the cons. First thing first, this camera does not have in-body image stabilization. We need this feature as content creators, filmmakers and vloggers with small body cameras. Fujifilm has made it possible with the XS10. They have the IBIS built in their cameras. I know it's a bit more expensive than this camera, but it's not that expensive, and I'm sure that Sony can make it possible with their new ZV series. On this camera we have electronic stabilization, which is great. It works really well, but it crops a lot into the image. It's an APS-C sensor, so the 12mm that I have here is equivalent to 18mm on a full frame. And when I activate the electronics tab for vlogging, for example, it becomes about 25mm, so it crops about 40% into the image. We lose a lot into the image. That's something that I really don't like on this camera. I prefer having IBIS and optical stabilized lens, for example, but for budget lenses, we don't have optical stabilized lenses. That's the main issue, so I prefer having IBIS inside this camera. That helps a lot. This is what it looks like vlogging with the Sony ZVE10, the Samyang 12mm and the Zion Crane M3. The active stabilization is on the Sony ZVE10, and now I'll turn it off to see the difference between the frames and how much the stabilization crops on the Sony ZVE10. And now the active stabilization is off. You can see how much it cropped when the active stabilization is on the Sony ZVE10, and now the field of view is much wider, which is very pleasant for vlogging. This camera has the old menu system from Sony. I hope that we can update it with a firmware update to the newest menu system, which is more intuitive, because this one is really difficult to understand. It's really difficult to reach. You have to pass lots of time on it in order to know every setting where it is placed in the menu. That's something that I don't like on this camera as well. On the ZV1 it was almost the same menu as well. The Sony ZV10 does not have any weather seal to it, so it's not possible to use it when it's raining outside. So I need something that has a good weather seal to it, so I can use it whenever I want, wherever I want. That's something really important for me. The battery on this camera is not the perfect. It stays maybe an hour when filming, but it's not a great battery. I wish that they can upgrade the battery of the new ZV series so we can use it for a longer time without worrying about changing batteries when we are filming. Another issue on this camera is that it cannot record in 4K 60. We are limited to 4K 25 or 4K 30. We cannot film slow motion in 4K as well. So for slow motion we are limited to 1080, which is not bad, but not the perfect and not the ideal footages that we want from this camera. So I hope that Sony will address this issue in their new ZV series. Add to that, I never enjoyed using the Imagine Edge on the smartphone to control and monitor the camera. It has lots of bugs. It might work for you maybe, but for me it was a hassle working with the application. I didn't enjoy it, so I prefer using the camera without the application. It's much better for me. During the last few months, I've been using this camera a lot. I've been enjoying it a lot, but I've noticed that if it was connected to a smartphone or to a computer, we lose the eye autofocus on this camera even after we disconnect it from the computer and the smartphone. It does not turn off the computer and smartphone on the menu system. We have to turn it off manually. That's a hassle, because if you don't have the eye autofocus, we cannot vlog with this camera easily. We'll end up with some bad footages. I've been in this situation many times, and now I have to check every time I use this camera whether it was connected to a smartphone or to a computer before using it, and that's a hassle. I wish that Sony can address this issue in their new ZV series. That's something really easy to do on a firmware update maybe. I wish that they can do it very soon. I noticed also that if I'm filming in 4K on this camera, I cannot record what's happening on the back of this camera with the Axon M1, for example. That's frustrating. We have to drop the quality from 4K to 1080 in order to do so. I wish that Sony can address this issue on a firmware update maybe, and of course on their new ZV series. And by the way, I'm doing another video on the Axon very soon on this channel. If you're interested, I highly appreciate if you subscribe and ring the bell so you will receive all the notifications about my future posts. And the most frustrating thing on this camera in 2023 is that we cannot film 4K 60 frames per second. As I said before, we are limited to 4K 30 frames per second, but in 8-bit 420 we cannot film in 10-bit 422. That's really frustrating on this camera. We cannot increase the bitrate of the video files. We are limited to 100 megabit per second. We cannot go higher. On small action cams now we can go much higher than this. I wish that Sony addressed this issue very soon on this camera or on their new ZV series. These were the pros and cons that I found on the Sony ZVE10, but it will remain one of my favorite cameras for vlogging and filming. Let me know if you have more pros and cons in the comment section below. Sony will release new 2 ZV cameras very soon this year, as to the rumors. The first one will be a full frame with the fixed lens. I believe it's gonna be a 20mm f2.8 that can record 4K 60 frames per second in 10-bit 422 up to 400 megabit per second, and I believe that it will be priced around 1300 euros. These are my guessings. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And Sony will release as well the Sony ZVE10 Mark II, I believe in the summer 2023. It's gonna be priced about 900 euros, and the Sony ZVE10 will be priced about 650 euros. These are my guessings. The ZVE10 Mark II will be 4K 60 frames per second with IBIS internally. That's something that we are waiting for. These are my guessings. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. That's it for today's video. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new, whether this camera, the Sony ZV10, is suitable for you, or you prefer waiting for the new ZVE10 Mark II maybe, or the other ZV series that Sony will release very soon. I highly appreciate if you subscribe to my channel. That's a massive help. Please check my affiliate links in the description below. That helps the channel a lot. And see you on another one. Have a nice day. Ciao.